Hello out there in cryptocurrency land. Welcome back to Real Crypto, where we take the markets one leg at a time while keeping the market cycle in mind. And we're going to talk today about Bitcoin, a couple other altcoins as well, some of the larger ones that could be putting the market in a little bit of flux right now. We're going to talk about current Bitcoin. We're going to zoom out to a broader picture of Bitcoin, why this could be a potential area to looking to short the market. Also, how this could be a potential area for a shift in the market. So it's one of those contentious moments in a bear market where you could change direction and trend in a broader perspective. So we'll talk about that. First off, I want to talk about the immediate Bitcoin action, and then we'll zoom out, like I said. So Bitcoin here, we've had some choppiness up here in the high, some distribution, but over the past 24 hours or so, it's really tightened up. We do have a higher low based off of that higher low, another higher low here. Now, this morning in the power hour, we were discussing doing a low risk short of Bitcoin up here, the way that things have been, oscillating up and down. The day before that, I guess that would be yesterday, we were talking about not shorting it here and waiting for a low volume rise. Well, we kind of had the low volume rise this morning, looking a little toppish with this higher volume sell candle, but the rest of the day here has been very tight, which is more bullish action. And so far, we're kind of, poking our heads higher. Volume here is a little lower. So we're still kind of in a lower volume rise. And if, we fail to break above our trend line here, this is kind of an arbitrary drawn one here at 39.70. If we fail to break above that with gusto, this is going to be a great area to short BTC. But right now, all the signs are pointing to bullish. I've got my RSI, which has kind of been making higher lows, bouncing off the 40 level, which is considered a place for an uptrend to bounce off of. We also have this consolidation, which you can see in the RSI bouncing right there. This has been consolidating as well and starting to curl to the upside, so that's bullish as well, getting to the 60 level. And then we have my volume aggregation tool, which tracks the major buys and sells in the market, and so that has turned green as well. You can see we're pretty flat in these for the past few bars all throughout today, but the greens have definitely maintained elevation over the reds. We're also bouncing off of moving averages, the 200s down here in the 50s right here, squeezing up against highs. So things are looking primed for a breakout, and it actually looks like it's going to break out. Let me show you a couple of different types of charts I pulled in my very advanced technology Microsoft Paint. So very advanced technology Microsoft Paint. This is current market. This is earlier in the market is this one. I'll show you that one in a minute because that one doesn't have the volume aggregation tool in the RSI. So I'm likening us right now. Look at how similar these two look. Bouncing off the 50-day moving average. You've got peaks up here. You've got peaks up here. A little shakeout. And right now you have some flattening, which we have some flattening. Your volume aggregation tool is green. Your RSI is at about the 60 level. So a lot of things lining up very similar to this. And it looks bullish for a reason because this thing broke out. But this was up at the 8,000 level. This was the final breakout before the failure right here. And if you notice here, the volume was lighter on the way up. And we may see something similar. We'll have to wait and see if we do get the breakout. But so that would be kind of the last gasp. We were talking this morning in the power hour regarding how the markets do 2, sometimes 3 legs up. This is the second leg, or this is the second leg for BTC. So we may get a third leg out of it. And so we can go back here to that third scenario. Now, I didn't look for a tremendously long time, but I did spend a few minutes looking around, and I come up with this other example of something similar. So the setup, not quite exact, but you can see we had a bounce. There's a form of a bull flag. We have a kind of a tighter consolidation here towards the end. The volume aggregation tool is green. The RSI is curling up and out of a consolidation. And these vertical lines are kind of where I think we are in the cycle. This one poked its head to a longer-term trend line and failed at that point. So a little bit of a difference here is that we're above our longer-term trend line. And that leads me to my next point about the market. Nice segue there. Looks like I'm professional or something. Okay, which I'm not. Anyway, okay, so here's BTC on the daily. And so you can see we've had a decent volume pop there. We had a lower volume consolidation. Although it wasn't a low volume consolidation, we didn't see a lot of bars like this. You can see we had one really low bar. It was a lower volume consolidation. Another pop on some pretty decent volume. And then now we have a nice consolidation that does look a little more bullish than the other consolidations I'm going to mention to you. but we are above this trend line here, this symmetrical triangle that we've had for Bitcoin here for, I don't know, about a month and a half before we even had this low. We were looking for a symmetrical triangle after we failed this inverted head and shoulders. Lo and behold, we got a kind of a weird low, but we ended up with one. So we bounced out of this. Now we're above this trend line and looking pretty bullish. Now, if we do get that next pop in BTC, there's a decent possibility we get sent up to this trend line again. That's possible. That could put us in line with possibly this point here, or even this point here if it doesn't quite get to the trend line. It could do a number of things. But one thing we were discussing in terms of Bitcoin trying to breaking trend lines is anytime during this downtrend, whenever it's broken a trend line, it's been a minuscule break and it's been a selling area. So you can see back here, we've actually had a couple different trend lines at BTC. Oh, dark theme toggle switch, that's new. I don't care. Okay, so we kind of had this. We first had this trend line here, all right, and we know about that one. That one broke. That one went a little bit higher than anticipated. Actually put in, this is what made me finally draw this trend line right there. I think it was one of the first ones to draw that, actually. So once we had this high in place here, I found this high, lined those up. So we got those lined up, failed at the 200-day moving average, and then ended up going lower. So we go above this trend line. It's not a time to buy Bitcoin when it crosses the trend line. This is also one of the more extreme trend lines that Bitcoin has, and it's sometimes advantageous to buy these, but in this instance it wasn't, and it ended up not being a good point to buy Bitcoin. So this one broke. We popped above it a little more than maybe we should have in terms of these highs to make my point, but we still broke above it and ended up rolling lower. Then this trend line ended up being the de facto standard. And when we finally broke that one here, everybody was super bullish, and we ended up floating around there for a week or so before failing that one, testing it here, testing it here. So in each of these pokes above, including this area, were all sell signals. So now we have another place in Bitcoin where we're trying to rally over a trend line. And I will say one thing about this bounce, the volume isn't tremendous. If you look at these bounces, you also had something similar. You had increased volume, but it wasn't hitting it out of the ballpark. It was elevated, but it wasn't, hey, let's turn around and run Bitcoin into new highs. That wasn't the volume that was here. That's very similar to what's happening here. All right, so unless we have a change in behavior, which would be a breakout in much more elevated volume, that could be the start of a change in behavior for Bitcoin. Now, if we break out of this on volume similar to this or lower than this, then I would assume we're going to fail up here somewhere and we're going to pull back again. So there's kind of the bullish case on the 2-hour and the bearish case on the daily. And I will say the bullish case is that this so far, this consolidation has a lot more green than most of these consolidations have had. So that is a little bit of a difference. Another difference here is that we are at much lower prices and we have a decent level of volume down here. You can see here there's a decent clip of volume there. So there is some accumulation that's been occurring down here. And we are down near the area where we could find a bottom. But the last time we talked about bottoming or going back into a bullish market at this point, which it didn't happen, at this point, which didn't happen, at this point, which didn't happen. And the question you have to ask yourself is, what makes this point different? And are you going to put money at risk based off of that? Okay, that's really what you have to ask yourself. And I can't tell you to do that. I can't tell you to not do that. It's up to your bias in the market and you as a trader and investor in terms of, where you think things are going to go. Anytime we get to these potential macro shifts in Bitcoin where the general market cycle could change, you remember my quote-unquote slogan, one leg at a time while keeping the market cycle in mind. There's a potential for a market cycle shift here into more of a choppy market from a downtrend. There's a possibility that this trend line coming up can give us a big broader picture if we do end up crossing that. That could maybe put something in jeopardy. But we've seen trend lines crossed in every single trend line we've drawn on BTC so far, except for this one, because it's the newest one after this point, has been crossed. This one was crossed here and it ended up rolling over. This one could cross here, could end up rolling over. So the longer these trend lines go, the less valid they are. All right, there's always at some point, every trend line fails at some particular point in time. Now, people may argue not every trend line. You're right, if you're going to draw from Bitcoin 10 cents to Bitcoin $5, that trend line is down here at $70 somewhere. So I get that point. But general, most trading trend lines become invalidated at some point in time. And the longer they go, they do hold trend, but then once they finally break, the market sees them as less valid and a new one will form. And that's what we have here. So that's formed there. All right, so that brings me to what could be a market shift in the markets in terms of going from a bear trend to a choppy trend. I'm not quite ready to call it yet. In fact, I may even be too late to call it yet. That's not my style, is to necessarily pick the absolute bottom unless we have capitulation, which Bitcoin has had at every low, which we don't have yet. I'll call that if we end up with that, but so far we don't have that. Now, so here's Bitcoin. The difference here is going to be Litecoin and EOS. And I know I have a lot of lines here. I draw these in the power hour. Let me remove these for a moment. Oh, darn it. I don't want to do that. Okay, so ignore all the lines except for this big blue line here. Okay, this blue line, I'm on a log scale chart, and this is the downtrend from the very top of Litecoin. Litecoin actually broke this on that huge up day we had. It was up 30% in one day. I'm sure you guys remember that. Right there, I think our alert level was there at the 33.29 level, if I'm not mistaken. But Litecoin shot up like a rocket, clearing a very long-term trend line. One of the few to do this. Most coins have not cleared a long-term trend line. Another one that has cleared a long-term trend line is EOS, also on extremely elevated volume. So we do have some accumulation in this market beginning, which is a definite change in behavior. We had high volumes here, but we've seen high volumes in the past. We've seen some high volumes throughout here, so this wasn't anything that different. This is a bit of a change in behavior. Broken trend line, have a higher high in place. The question you have to ask yourself is, can EOS and Litecoin pull us out of a bear market? I don't have the answer to that. Only history can tell us that. But these are really the questions of the day, and whoever has the correct answer to that and puts money in place will end up making a good amount of money based on that. So my personal opinion, I'm actually mixed. I don't really have a very strong opinion about it. I do think we're in a nice bull trend right now. I think we may get that one more pop up, and then we'll have to see if we fail after that. Now, if we do fail, we have to see how Litecoin responds to the failure, how EOS responds to the failure. If it's a higher low, does it put in a higher low? Maybe pulls back to this trend line. That could be a good purchase place. If we fail here in BTC, does this come down to the symmetrical triangle? Does it go through the symmetrical triangle? And then you have to ask yourself, can Litecoin hold up while Bitcoin falters? That has not been the historical precedent. The historical precedent is Litecoin will rise faster and fall faster than BTC based on the current market trend, which usually Bitcoin sets. In this case, it's a bit of a change in behavior where Litecoin is setting the trend. So a little different right there. And that's really all I got for it. I'm not going to go too deep in the woods with some of the other altcoins. We can touch on Ethereum for a second. So Ethereum's longer term trend line is much further out. It's right there. So that has yet to be breached. But Ethereum is breaking this trend line, also holding above it. Volume is good. And there's a possibility we could have that. We could have a next pump in Ethereum there. So if you do want to participate in that, I'm not mad at that, but be ready to be shaken out. Have your stops in place. And if it pops up and the volume is not exceptional, be ready to take profits much more quickly. And everybody gets mad at me because I don't cover XRP. So here's XRP. And XRP is at a moment in time where it has a higher low kind of throughout here, here, and here, coming to a low point. No major volumes here. XRP is actually lagging this market. So if it can catch up and have a secondary pump, this will be good. But so far, there's no major reasons to be trading in XRP with any kind of size at this moment in time. EOS and Litecoin are your leaders. Bitcoin always moves pretty decent. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining me today. If you do like my stuff, by the way, feel free to follow me in the Power Hour. Go to my services page on real-crypto.com and follow me there, where every single day we put out a newsletter and we do a live stream with charts and annotations. They're all recorded so you can view look at historical newsletters, view the videos if you want to as well. Also, our alert system, which is done through our Slack chat room, you get access to that as well with the subscription, and as well as my volume aggregation and bars are indicator. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining me today. Hey, I do want to say I'm sorry for not being here as often. I'm actually working on a project for some crypto trading tools, so that'll be coming up. It's not even close to being done, but I'm working on that. and that'll be out as soon as I can get it out there and live. But thanks for joining me, guys. I appreciate the support, and I'll see you guys next time.